All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. This is the Legacy Makers podcast. Super excited to have you guys on and listening with us. It's just me today. Usually Megan's here with me, but we've got a great guest that I'm so excited to introduce to you. His name is Kurt Blake, and he's going to tell you all about himself in just a little bit. But he is with an organization called Communio. And he's got a great family, and he's all about family discipleship. And so he's got tons of nuggets for us today and tons of wisdom. And we're going to be kind of honing in on the conversation around family discipleship in the church, in communities, and how that really levels up the opportunities for church to make a generational impact. And I'm just so excited to have this conversation today. Thank you so much,
Kurt. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time out of your day. And I'm excited. I'm excited to hear what you got to say and have you share with us. But if you don't mind, just go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us about who you are and what you do and all things Kurt.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me here. It's not too far from home. I grew up in Huntington Beach, California.
Yeah.
Just up the freeway, and I'm still there today. I tell you what, man, I was 19 before I got on a plane, and I didn't even realize how different the rest of America is compared to where I grew up. And you get on a plane and you fly over just these vast swaths of undeveloped land, and you go, why aren't they putting houses all over the place? Because growing up here in Southern California, you just kind of get used to the mega city that SoCal is. But
and you get the beach, you can't beat it, man.
I know. But no, I'm excited to be here. Yeah, grew up here in Orange County. My wife and I have been married for 23 years.
Nice.
We have 4 kids, age 16, 13, 11, and 8.
Okay.
And we homeschool our kids.
You got, what's the difference? Boys, girls?
So one boy so boy just turned 16.
Nice.
And then daughter 13, daughter 11, and daughter 8.
Love it.
The only non-negotiable when we got married was my wife said, hey, we're going to homeschool our kids. So she'd had a homeschool experience back in the in the 80s and 90s, and so she just really wanted to do that. So
amazing.
Yeah. So ever since we've been married, and ever since we had kids, we've been steering towards that.
So good.
Yeah, I work for Communio. Communio is a ministry that exists to train and equip the local church to evangelize their communities through marriage and family renewal. Okay? So we look at kind of all the issues that society is facing, whether it's homelessness, poverty, addiction, the mental health crisis, teenage pregnancy. Really pick your area of focus, and more often than not, those are rooted in the breakdown of marriage and family.
Yeah.
Okay, it's something like 80% of the people who show up to church on a Sunday morning, kind of regardless of the generation they come from, are going to have a stable 2-parent family background, which means they grew up in a picture of at least structural marital health.
80%?
Right? Yeah, 80%. That's 80 to 81%, depending on generation.
Yeah.
And so as you look at that statistic, you think, okay, why are churches kind of naturally gearing or drawing people from what we would say is the nuclear family?
Yeah.
Okay. And why is that? We feel like it's
what do you mean drawing people from?
Just by virtue of the fact that 8 out of 10 people who show up on Sunday come from a stable 2-parent family. That sort of indicates that whatever's happening at church is drawing those people at a higher rate.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Who came from relationships or marriages that were a little bit more complicated, families that had maybe a step parent or divorce or single parent, something like that.
That's where the families are coming from.
Yeah. So if we look at that and we start to think why is that? It makes sense. We talked about this when we had lunch, right?
Yeah.
God is my Father. Christ loves his people, the church, the way that a husband loves a wife, right? That's how we best understand the love of God towards his people, is what we see modeled in human relationships. Paul says it's a mystery how that happens, right? The church is called the family of God, right? That's the number one metaphor that's used in Scripture to relate the people of God to one another.
So good.
Genesis, the book of Genesis begins with this picture of a marriage between Adam and Eve. And then the book of Revelation ends with this wedding feast of the Lamb, right? So all throughout our story that we're telling the world is this marriage and family language. That's just how God communicates his love to his people. And so as you look out in the cultures, marriage has been steadily in decline since the early 70s. Marriage rates have kind of dropped off of a cliff. It makes sense that if our gospel is about reconciling people's relationship with their heavenly Father, then it makes sense that how they experience earthly relationships is going to either attract them to that or repel them from that. So we see marriage and family as a mission frontier for the church. It's absolutely an evangelism opportunity. And what we're trying to do is clarify the gospel by clarifying marriage and family. Does that make sense?
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah.
Clarifying the gospel by clarifying marriage and family. That's so good. Yeah, it's something that we say too I think it was Mary Eberstadt. She's like, in her book, How the West Really Lost God, she says that the family, like you say, and the marriage is God's picture of the gospel. It's like what the church needs the family to paint that picture.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's the family is kind of the core building block of society. It's also the core building block of the church.
Yeah.
And we do a lot I've been involved in church leadership for a number of years. We do a lot kind of worrying about the margins, like if we lean too heavily on family, then people who don't have a family are going to feel ostracized, or they're going to feel put out. And we should definitely be sensitive to those people. Yeah. But make no mistake about it. The story of Scripture is the story of families in union with God. Yeah. So good. One thing that I've really appreciated, and I feel like I feel like we share a similar mentality, whether it's with Legacy Makers or with Communio or just me and you, Kurt. Something I've noticed, and I feel like maybe you have this, but it's like, I feel like Communio and you yourself, like it's like you guys you're results oriented. Absolutely. You're results driven. Yeah. When it comes to the numbers and like the actual societal level data. Yeah. It's like, we don't want to just put on a show. We don't want to just put on no, we want to see actual change. Yeah, absolutely. We want to make a difference. I've totally appreciated that in Communio, and then I think I've seen that. And you just have this grinding mentality. Like you're a go-getter. Let's get it done. So I left a career in commercial banking to come join Communio, right? I was a commercial banker for 22 years. You can't really tell with the beard and everything, but
you're looking great. You look great.
I worked, side by side with churches in a financing perspective to help them optimize their resources and to set up their liquidity structures and governance and all that. Really to be a help to the church. And when the Communio story was told to me, literally it was presented as, if you fix families, you strengthen the church. If you strengthen the church, you fix the city, you fix the state, you fix the country, you fix the world, right? Yeah. So our seminal work, the thing that really opened my eyes to the importance of this work, we did, maybe 10, 11 years ago, a 3-year campaign in Jacksonville, Florida. Okay. And really what that was we took, the reason why we chose Jacksonville, first of all, Jacksonville was on a list, I think they were number 6 on a list that Men's Health magazine put out of the worst metropolitan areas for marriage in America. Really? Okay, so like 6 out of 10. Whoa. So we put a target on Jacksonville. Okay. We developed a partnership with 93 church and nonprofit partners in Jacksonville and the surrounding cities with the intention of improving marriage and family outcomes kind of on scale, right? So you're talking about data-driven, you're talking about numbers and all that. Like, how much of an impact could we make in 3 years? Over the 3-year course of our time being there, we put over 60,000 people through what we call skills-based relationship marriage, ministry. We saw the divorce rate in Duval County drop by 24%. 24%. 24% divorce rate drop in Jacksonville County.
That's wild.
Yeah, and that's not us like kind of like putting that number out there. The Institute for Family Studies, which I'll talk about a little bit later as well, they would go back and later study our work there and say, hey, we think that this campaign is what directly contributed to that drop, right? So 24% drop.
That's crazy.
Church attendance.
Do you know what the divorce rate was?
So it's 24% in the sense of like if you have like a 4% rate and you drop it 3%, then that's 25% of the overall.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the actual rate was before. It's in the IFS study.
Okay.
I'd have to pull it up and look at it. But,
Okay.
churches that we partnered with, they grew in attendance. Giving grew. And those are great kind of byproducts of any effort of the church. The old joke in ministry is you want to count nickels and noses, right? Like how many dollars are coming in, how many people are sitting in the church. Those are kind of some more crass statistics, but more importantly, like marriages were restored, divorce was prevented, but people were introduced to the gospel, people came to faith in Christ, and we saw this radical lift that can happen when the church with a big C, right? The large church really puts their effort behind solving a problem. Because when you look at marriage and family outcomes for society, there's no single denomination or no single church that's going to be able to impact them at scale. It's got to be everybody lifting together, which is why I'm excited about Legacy Makers. So
yeah, so good.
Yeah.
Dang, dude. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Can you just kind of go into it a little bit? Like, how does it, like, what did those churches actually do? Like, you said 60,000 families have kind of gone through this process.
60,000 people, yeah.
And these churches were finding these families or working with these families or couples and people. And like, how did that look? Like, how did they do that?
So Jacksonville was a kind of an unfolding of a process that we would develop out of Jacksonville that involved a lot of targeted marketing.
Okay.
So picture yourself like you have kids. So go back to like the first time you guys found out you were pregnant, right? It probably wasn't you reaching out to Target or Huggies or Pampers and saying, "Hey, we're pregnant." That got them to start sending you coupons for diapers and things like that, right? What happened was they were able to exploit consumer data. They were able to target you in a way that said, "Hey, we think you're pregnant." Well, we do the same thing with our data. So essentially what we're doing is we're working with churches to cultivate an environment where marriage and family is stewarded well, and then reach out to people in the community in a very targeted way to invite them into that environment. So if you think of like evangelism strategies, kind of gospel 101 stuff, a lot of times what you're doing is you're meeting people's felt need so that you can help them with their actual need, which is reconciliation with their Heavenly Father, right? So
that's good.
What we would do is we'd find opportunities, those on-ramps that people have. A typical one might be like a couple gets married. Maybe they have a history in their past of attending church, but they go to college and they kind of stop attending church, get married, and then they talk about faith and they talk about church attendance, and they say something like, "Well, when we have kids, then we'll find a church and we'll go back to church," right?
Yeah.
So what we do is we kind of find those people, those on-ramps that they sort of naturally have in life. And we find opportunities to invite them back into church. But if we're going to invite them back into church, we got to make sure first and foremost that the church is a healthy place where marriage is lifted up. Like the book of Hebrews says, in Hebrews 13:4 says, marriage is to be esteemed by all. Well, what if our churches did a really good job of living that out?
Good verse.
So that when people come into that environment, they feel like, hey, this is a place where we feel supported in our marriage, we feel supported in our family, and we feel like we're getting some skills. Maybe. So a lot of times in the church, we focus on virtues. One of the things Communio does really well is we teach people to learn skills that they can use that's going to make their relationship better.
So with the data, I'm just curious. This is my mind goes to like if you have like the targeted data, like the targeted marketing. How these, how most big companies, Amazon or something, you have, maybe you might be Googling something and then all of a sudden you see the advertisement of what you're Googling or something like it on Facebook. And is it kind of like that? Like where you?
So I mean that's kind of an analog.
Obviously not like
it's
crazy.
It's not like as Big Brother is watching. But I mean the way that one pastor put it one time is he said he was a third generation pastor. And he said, my granddaddy's generation had to figure out how to use radio and TV to reach people. My dad's generation had to wrestle with how to use the internet to reach people. And now my generation is trying to figure out how to use data to reach people. And so that's what this is. It's another tool that we can use. It's another opportunity that the world has presented for the church to be able to reach people in a really tangible but clever way that meets them where they're at.
Yeah.
We spend so much time and energy in church focusing on, okay, when people come, what do we want their experience to be like? A lot of times we're just kind of waiting for people to show up. And this is meeting them where they're at, whether it's in their email inbox or whether it's, a text message or, good old fashioned snail mail.
Yeah. Dang.
Yeah.
So then, okay, I'm just picturing, from an evangelistic standpoint, let's say you find, and this is where my mind was going, and I don't know if this is right, but you find someone somehow through using data, you're able to locate somebody that might be struggling.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Yeah.
And then is this how it works? Like you essentially, through the partnership with the church, you provide the church with a specific data set, and the church is able to then go out and use the data to find the people that are likely to be struggling, or how does it work?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of different things that we do. So first thing we'll do when we're working with a church is we'll come in and we'll do a survey of everybody in the congregation. We'll ask them really like pastoral questions, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how often do you struggle with loneliness? Like that today is such a good, insightful question that almost nobody in the church is asking, because it's awkward. If I said, "Hey Ben, how often do you struggle with loneliness?" And leaned in and waited for your answer, But if you can anonymize a survey, send it out to a congregation, get those kind of results. So we're finding out kind of what's the tone and temperature of marriage and relationship and family within a congregation, and we're making recommendations into how the church can kind of bolster certain areas within the congregation. Then we are doing some outreach in terms of a demographic study of the neighborhood, finding out a lot of times pastors will sort of develop their opinion of their community based on who's showing up on Sunday morning. And Sunday morning is not always representative of the general population. I'll give you a real practical example. There's a pastor not far from here in Newport Beach. His church is made up of all young families for the most part. Like they've got lots of families, multiple kids, but they're in Newport Beach. If you look at the area immediately surrounding his church, I mean, it's mostly retired couples or couples with adult kids who are kind of at the end of their career. And so as you look at the distinction between those two data sets, you could, on Sunday morning, you could look and go, okay, this is a church in a community full of thriving young families. But then you look in their immediate area and you find out actually people are driving 20 to 30 minutes, to come to church on Sunday morning. So if you're planning an outreach strategy, you could really miss the mark based on just who's showing up on Sunday morning. So
that makes sense.
Yeah. So try to develop some of that demographic knowledge about the community at large, sort of exegeting the culture, if again, borrowing that from Keller. And then there are certain predictors that you can look at within the data that will give you a hint at who might be a marriage that's in crisis. And so if you can reach out to those people with an invite to, something that's, mostly fun, but a little bit of kind of skill-based relationship stuff, and sort of slowly bring them into the life of the church. We have something called a ministry engagement ladder. We don't need to get into it right now, but opportunities to invite people into the life of the church using that marriage and family focus is kind of the outreach.
So it's like it sounds like it's like obviously very targeted. And it's very very intentional.
Sure.
Right. I'm curious, what's your take on do you feel like there is a hesitancy with a lot of pastors and a lot of churches to engage at that level for the most part, or how come, why
isn't everybody doing that?
Yeah. This seems obvious.
Yeah. I mean, so a couple of things behind that. One, I think for the most part, pastors are busy people, right? For 22 years, I tried to sell banking services to churches, some years they did it better than others, but so here we are, a bank is something that every church needs, right, to do business. And I'm one of many trying to reach out to them and describe to them why my banking is better. Well, Communio is really one of one. We don't exist, there's no, I could say, oh, we're like this, we're really kind of one of one.
Yeah.
So first is just getting people's attention and describing for them our process.
Yeah.
Then second, a lot of pastors are we're doing marriage and family at our church. Okay. We've got premarital counseling. Maybe we've got a couple of MFTs that we reach out to if there's marriage in crisis type stuff. once every 18 months or so, we'll do a marriage retreat. And when it's appropriate, we'll preach on it from the pulpit. Like, so most folks are like, we've got marriage and family on lock, right?
Yeah.
Like, we know how to do it. And quite frankly, in the pantheon of options, related to like how you can operate your ministry, there's just only so much you can do, right?
Yeah.
So I think some of it's a little bit of that.
True.
What we've shown is with those targeted questions and maybe some of those kind of more nuanced, strategic elements of what we do, there's a quantity aspect to like how much are you doing for marriage and family, but then there's really a quality aspect. So I'll pick on another church that I worked with. I was talking with a pastor and he said, hey, everything's going great. We're doing a marriage and family retreat and we're sold out of all the spots that we've got for the retreat. Like 40 couples are coming. It's going to be a great weekend.
Wow.
And so just one question deeper is, okay, how many of those couples are coming because they're struggling and they said they'd give this one last shot?
Yeah.
Versus how many are coming because they're thriving in marriage and they just need to work on the edges a little bit. And he's like, I don't know. Okay. So that's like a deeper layer of marriage and family ministry that we find a lot of people miss when they just kind of say, yeah, we're already doing this. Right? And then the other part of your question was like, why aren't more people doing this? The 2.0 to that question is, we're still on the newer side. We've been around 7 years. We started in Virginia, kind of marched westward.
Yeah.
And, we're in the process now, instead of going church by church, of engaging church movements. So networks, regional, denominational offices. Next week, for example, I'll be in Aspen, Colorado, and we're kicking off our work in Aspen and really renewing our work in the state of Colorado. So we're going to meet with Nazarene, United Methodist, Southern Baptist, Anglican church leaders that have oversight of literally hundreds of churches in Colorado. And we're going to express to them this vision. And then through cohorts and just kind of one-to-many, we'll be able to multiply that effort to more churches.
Yeah.
So
what would you say to a pastor? Like, obviously, like you said, there's a pantheon of options. There's tons of things that you could choose from as a pastor, as a church to plug in. Like, how would you, what would you say, what would you convey as far as the importance of something like this, the intentionality behind it, as like the number one pick? Like, you should do this versus everything else because.
Yeah. I think, when we did our initial research study with Barna, we did this faith and family study. What that demonstrated was that, the average church, think of like, whatever your prototype is of the average church, 200 to 300 people, they're going to spend like almost $100,000 a year on intentional youth ministry, whether it's programming, staffing, et cetera, junior high, high school. They're going to spend $100,000 a year on that, and they're going to spend almost nothing on intentional marriage and family ministry. And I would say, whether it's your men's ministry, your women's ministry, your youth ministry, a lot of the need for those ministries is centered around the breakdown in marriage and family, right? So, men might struggle with, certain issues in their lives that are rooted in their family of origin. Women might struggle with certain issues in their lives rooted in their family of origin. Certainly the number of at-risk youth that are being served in the church, if marriage and family were strong in a particular community, you would see this kind of lasting generational impact. And it would, I'm not saying don't have a men's Bible study, don't have a women's Bible study. There's certainly great things we can learn from each other. But if you center your ministry around the family, around marriage first, family second, you start to see the need for so much of what happens in those ministries that's centered around responding to crises and things like that. That becomes more of a discipleship multiplier instead of just kind of an emergency mode reaction kind of a ministry.
Like, it becomes supplemental.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. That's
versus the only thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So that's what I would say. It's just like, maybe we're doing ministry the way that we're doing ministry today because that's the way we've always done it. This is just an invitation to maybe a little more thoughtful and strategic approach to how we organize ourselves as a church.
Is there anything else? I'm just curious too on the study that you guys did with IFS. Like, what were some of the other findings in that study?
Yeah. So good call out. Yeah, we just released a study with the Institute for Family Studies.
So cool.
It's all about passing the torch and kind of how faith is transmitted through families, right? So we'll from time to time, in addition to the ministry stuff that we'll do, we'll sponsor studies and participate in studies. We just released one with IFS. We've done one with
this one like led by IFS, or was it more initiated by you guys?
a little bit of both. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So you can read the full rundown if you go out and look at the IFS website. But there's a couple of Fox News articles on it as well. But essentially what we did was we studied how faith is transmitted from one generation to the next, right? So something the legacy makers might be a little interested in, right? And so, I mean, the number one thing is just how often you talk about your faith, right? So is faith an element of something we do on Sunday mornings? Is it something that, like, man, if something goes wrong in the week, maybe we'll stop and pray. We're going to pray at mealtime. Or is it something that's deeply ingrained and a part of your daily life? So the stunning statistic is like the difference between, hey, we're just going to church on Sunday morning and we talk about our faith every day, in how that faith gets communicated to kids and how they carry that on to the next generation. It's like an 8 times factor. So like if you're talking about your faith regularly with your kids, there's something like 8 times more likely to carry that faith into adulthood.
8 times.
Yeah. Yeah. So
that's insane.
It's pretty incredible. So yeah, that study, really what I think my generation and probably your generation as well, of like kids that came up in the church, it was youth group was kind of an answer to discipleship, right? How do we disciple our young people? We send them a youth group, right? And what this study, other studies we've done is highlighting is really like, no, this needs to be both mom and dad engaged in faith, engaged in a genuine walk with Christ, and then communicating that on a regular basis to the kids. Don't let the youth pastor disciple your kids. The youth pastor is there to be a backstop to accentuate, to put a punctuation mark on what the kids are learning at home. But really, the parents need to be the ones who are communicating the faith. And it needs to be something that's authentic, that happens on a daily basis. And then that's where you see the big payoffs from generation to generation.
So good.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I definitely like the authentic idea. That's good. I mean, I think about our family and our kids, and it's like when I'm engaged in it in the mornings and I'm like, kind of animated. Yeah. It's like engaging. Well, and they're like, oh wow, yeah.
Here's one thing that the study like highlights that I think is obvious, but I'll say it anyway. So when one parent is engaged in the faith on a regular basis, like obviously that's not going to have as much of a lasting impact, right? Yeah. When 2 parents are engaged, you're going to see a multiplying effect, right? But here's the thing: when one parent's engaged in the faith, it's almost always the mom. Yeah, right? It's almost always the mom. It's never the dad who's dragging the mom and the kids to church. So really, the home run is like, dads, take this seriously. Yeah. Be actively engaged in discipling your kids. Yes. Lead your families well. Lead your wife well.
So good, man.
And watch the.
Have you heard of Vern Bankston?
No.
Have you read? Okay, you got to check that book out. Similar. It's not the same study, but different. And he was more so. So he did a study on faith transfer, but more so generalize it to all faiths. Okay. So it was a 40-year study.
Oh wow.
And I think it was like 350 families that he essentially just followed for 40 years. And each family had 4 generations represented. Okay. And so he would interview these families, time after time, all throughout the years. And I heard this at I was at this thing called the Fatherhood Commission. Okay. Up at Pepperdine. Okay. And it was the dean of Pepperdine was talking about this study. And he was saying how in the study, Dr. Vern Bankston, he found that the number one factor in faith transfer was the presence of a warm and the strength and warmth of a father-child bond.
Absolutely.
That was the number one factor. The number 2 factor was the strength of the mother's bond. And number 3 was the strength of the grandparents with the kids' bond. Yeah. And then he even said church attendance wasn't even decisive.
And I think that is the big aha from our recent study is just the the centering of faith transmission in the family, right? And so, yes, church attendance, like as a devotion, as an act of worship, those are important. Those are not what are primarily going to keep your kids in the faith. What's primarily going to keep your kids in the faith is seeing that authentic daily involvement and just involving your kids in conversation. I love that we homeschool and that I work from home because occasionally I'll be getting a cup of coffee and our kids will be doing, a little bit of morning school rhythm with mom. And sure enough, there'll be a Bible question. Hey, Dad, can you come in here for a minute? We have a question about something. And we have some of the best conversation, ever. Just those spontaneous moments where
beautiful.
We were reading this and we had this question. So,
that's rich, man. That's what it's all about. I love that, dude. I love hearing that.
Yeah.
So kind of back on the personal note too, I was something you had said a while back. I think we had lunch or maybe it was another time. And it was just kind of, it was cool. I mean, I'm totally with you in what you were saying. But I think in terms of the cultural moment, it was like, that's a controversial statement.
Yeah.
And so I wanted
good for one or two of those every lunch. So.
So good. But it was just funny because, and I don't want to like offend anybody here, but it was the idea that like we have in our culture, everyone has different worldviews.
Sure.
And it's like the majority of, and maybe you can, I'm probably butchering what you said, but I just want to kind of riff on it a little bit. But it was like, the idea was that there are people that maybe are against Christianity or that don't have a Christian worldview, or maybe they have a very secular worldview and they're against children, against having kids. And you had said something that was kind of funny, but it was like, well, they're not going to last, or something like that.
So the idea, I mean, if you follow the news, right, birth rates are down, right? So what does that communicate about society? It communicates that our society is contracting, right? So to the extent that Christians are out there kind of outpacing the birth rate, if we can communicate the faith well, then necessarily, there's going to be, this is going to sound funny, there's going to be more of the fewer people will come from a Christian background. So but realistically, I mean, looking at birth rates and kind of church growth trends and things like that, I mean, I was reading some information the other day. The number or the percentage of the population in a given area, let's say 25% of the population here in Costa Mesa where we are is age 60 and up, right? Well, at most churches in the area, the percentage of their congregation that fits in that category is more like 40 to 45%, right? We had this big movement in kind of the baby boom and shortly after that we saw this population boom. A lot of those people are Christians who come from generations of mom and dad faithfully attending church. So there's this overrepresentation in a lot of our churches of folks from that background, from that age group, right? So what does that mean? Well, it means in the next 15 to 20 years, those people they're going to slow down in terms of their involvement at church. They're going to go from volunteering and maybe attending a couple times a week to maybe only being able to attend once a week. Video attendance is going to increase. And then eventually those people are going to retire and they're going to enter into their eternal reward, right? So as a church leader, as someone who thinks in big trends and kind of looks at, demographics and things like that, I'm concerned about a declining church population 20 years from now. I don't want a less influential church in 20 years. I want a more influential church. And so the only way to kind of look at that in terms of what we've been talking about is we need to encourage more young people to get married earlier, to have families sooner, and to have more kids, right? Because that's just kind of practically the way that the church is going to be able to sustain its influence in the culture.
So good, man.
Yeah.
I'm all about it.
There you go.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Well, couple last thoughts. What would you say to dads, moms, to stay the course? How would you what would you want to say to encourage parents right now?
Yeah, I would say first and foremost, have grace for yourself, right?
That's good.
So I grew up in a family where mom and dad had my mom took us to church when I was 5 years old.
Yeah.
I remember thinking oh, this is new and different. What's this all about, right? Yeah. She was leaning into her faith that she had as a kid growing up.
Yeah.
and just thought, hey, we should get the kids into church, right?
Yeah.
And so ended up just having a delightful church experience. Dad was a little bit later on in life, like, came into the faith and really joined participation in a regular church a little bit later in life. So we have this legacy now where we look back and go, okay, everybody in my family loves Jesus. I married my wife and we're raising our kids in the faith. I look at our situation and it's really easy to listen to a podcast, read a book and go, oh, am I doing enough? Am I, what am I doing? But then just kind of look a generation back and first and foremost, have grace for your parents. Like the older I get, the more I realize like, oh man, my parents were just doing their best. Like they came from, they came from their own chaos and their own, their own dysfunction. So have grace for your parents, have grace for yourself, and then just be regular in how you practice your faith, right? So don't be starting and stopping. We're going to do this program, we're going to do that program, but just be like a normal, regular person who loves Jesus and models that well, not just in how often you study your Bible or how often you go to church, but like in how you parent your kids, right? Like if your parents see you studying your Bible, but you're flying off the handle all the time and yelling at them, they're going to see a disconnect, right? They're going to go, well, that's what Jesus was talking about when he was talking about hypocrisy, right? So, but have grace for yourself, have grace for your parents, and then just lead your kids well in a consistent and regular pattern, and not one that's constantly kind of being blown to and fro by every trend that comes along.
So good.
Yeah.
How would you want to encourage pastors who might be listening? How would you want to encourage a pastor or a church?
I mean, I love you guys. Like keep doing the work. Like first and foremost, like we need pastors. The number of pastors that I talk to that are discouraged, that are targeted with criticism throughout the week. Like, I mean, I hang out with my pastor occasionally, and it's like, it just takes an email, at the wrong time from somebody, just to like set their entire week in a bad direction. And so I would say like first and foremost, like support the families, support the parents in your church. They really are the foundation for so much of what the Lord wants to do in your congregation. Yeah. And a lot of us come to church, we're tired, we're wiped out from a week of doing so much stuff, and we just need an encouragement.
On top of having your own family.
Right. we just need a lift, and so just be pro family. Do things like we have a pastor's toolkit on our website.
Oh, cool.
Do things to encourage marriage in the congregation. Yeah. One of the churches we work with was like, hey, wait a minute. If marriage is important, why are we charging people $500 to get married in our church? Let's waive our facility fee if somebody wants to host a wedding here. Boom. Instantly, you made a better culture of marriage in your congregation. If a couple gets engaged, like what does Hebrews 13:4 say? Like I said earlier, marriage is to be esteemed by all. Man, celebrate that from the pulpit. Don't worry about how that's going to translate on the podcast later on or the video that you're going to post on YouTube. Yeah. Be excited for people. Celebrate people's anniversaries. Just create a culture around marriage where people are excited and looking forward to it. And then the thing that I love that one pastor I met with does is he sits behind the scenes and he watches the single people in his congregation, and he goes, okay, that guy and that girl would make a great couple. And he tries to actually like coordinate,
go.
and not to say like every pastor is going to be, Match.com or something like that, but just making it easier. Today's young people have so much against them. Oh yeah. It's so hard. That's cool, man. Just how young people came up to develop healthy relationships and to form healthy habits around dating and things like that. Man, if you're a pastor and you're an authority figure in both people's lives and you see a potential match, don't hide that under a bushel. I
wonder what the going rate is, that if your pastor tells this person and this person to get married, I wonder how often they would get married.
I don't even know, man.
I bet it's pretty high.
But I feel like a lot of people are younger people, they don't have those tools for whatever reason. If you read some of the studies, and certainly the apps, the dating apps and things like that are not making it easier. No. Somebody pointed out recently that like the whole point of the dating app is to develop an algorithm to keep you using the dating app, right?
Wow.
So
interesting.
So like they're in business to keep you dating.
Yeah, true. Wow.
So if you're a church leader and you see young people in your congregation and you're like, hey, I think these two would make a good match, like say something, please.
Yeah, that's so good.
Right?
Oh, I love that, dude. I love that, man. That's awesome. That's a great practical piece of advice. I want to see that. That'd be epic.
That would be.
Well, thank you so much, Kurt. How can a church or a pastor get in touch with you or reach out to Communio or get hooked up with you guys?
Yeah, I mean, particularly, in my role working with denominational leaders and things like that, if anybody who's listening to this leads a group of churches and wants to talk, I mean, you can find me on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
That's probably the easiest way. Just
Epic.
KurtBlake.
Kurt
Blake on LinkedIn. Communio, which basically is like the word communion if you drop the last N, COMMUNIO.org. Go on there and check out our research tab. Download our pastor's toolkit.
Sweet.
Look at our national study that we did with Barna. Those are some good ways to kind of get engaged. And then, one thing that we do for churches, and certainly anybody who's listening to this podcast would be invited into this. We provide what's called an insights report, and that's that demographic study that I mentioned. Happy to do that free of charge for anybody who listens to the Legacy Makers podcast and wants to know some categories of relationship health in their community that they could lean into and shepherd their communities really well.
Epic, dude. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, man.
Absolutely.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Kurt.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being on the podcast, man.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was, dude. It was good. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next time.